Hello, everyone. It's Nancy Rebecca with Intuitive Mind, and this is another one of my interviews where the intention is to help normalize individuals who have sensitivities to intuitive psychic abilities. And today I'm going to be interviewing Melanie Davis-Jones. So welcome, Melanie. And before I get started, I just want to let everybody know who's going to be watching this video that this coming Sunday on July 25th, we're doing a psychic showcase where I will be coming on, as well as some of my advanced psychics, where we work as a team and we do readings on volunteers. So go to my website, intuitivemind.org, click on Psychic Showcase. I will include the link here at the bottom of this interview as well. So I'll be excited to see you all on this upcoming Sunday, July 25th. So hello, Melanie, how are you today?
I'm great, thanks. And I just have to say the Psychic Showcase was big fun, so everyone should do it.
It is a lot of fun because we work a little bit differently, very much always wanting to be practical, really want to normalize, but you know, your auric field shows who you truly are. And that true part of kind of in psychic intuitive ability is spirit's always showing really our best aspects of ourselves, even more so than we most times are not able to see in ourselves. So that's the beauty I feel about doing the work that we do. So thank you so much for letting me nab you for an interview. And I've got some questions, and I like to ask similar questions of everybody, but you know what's so interesting to me, Melanie, is that everybody comes at it from a different angle. So I'm really excited to hear what your angle is this morning. So the first question, are you ready?
Sure, ready as I'll be.
So my first question is, did you always know that you were sensitive to unseen energies as a child, or did you come to your awareness later in life?
That's a great question. I had a sense of it when I was younger. I was very much a free spirit when I was younger. And I remember this very specific instance when I was maybe 5 or 6 and we were sitting around a table with some friends, and I knew the milk was going to spill and going to go all over the table. And it did. And I told my mother, I was like, I saw that before it happened. And she was like, no, you didn't, or maybe you made it spill. And she was really quite dismissive of it. What I know now is both my parents were very intuitive, but they clamped it down, and it makes a lot of sense. You know, I was a young Black girl in the 60s, so they really wanted to keep me safe. So I really felt that box close in on me as I was a child, you know, as a child. So definitely came to it later. I have identical twin sons. And so really understanding sort of the energy between them. I remember Colin was in one room with the nanny. He bumped his head, and I was in another room, and Cam rubbed his, you know.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, did Colin just hit his head on the right side? And the nanny was like, yes. And like, oh. And I talked to my father, who was a psychologist, and he said, well, you know, if you had a TV turned to the same station, wouldn't they play the same thing? So that's sort of being aware of energy. And when my dad passed away quite suddenly, I was driving home and I felt the energy of the moon. And now I know that it was sort of that connection. But then maybe a few months later, we came in and the babysitter said, you know, Cam was talking to his grandfather, because I walked upstairs and I knew he wasn't talking to Colin. And she said, who are you talking to? He was about 2.5. And he was like, Grandpa Davis. You're like, wow, where is he? You're like, right there in the moon. Can't you see him? So
I have chills.
So it was those kind of things that really opened me up to it and, started my personal journey in meditation. I will say my mother's illness, maybe 14, 15 years later, really got me into looking at more healing modalities for others.
I think that that's fascinating, because even for me, my own experience came through having several deaths in the family. I was a hospice nurse, but as I've been doing these interviews, and I've never made that connection before, but almost everyone has come to this. They've had some type of big shift, whether an illness, a death, a family member. So it's interesting that that's what finally opened those doors for you to explore more.
Exactly.
Fascinating, fascinating. So have you always been public about your sensitivities? I know you just said, as a young child of color, your family really just wanted to keep that pretty safe box around you. So have you tended to keep them private, or are you public with them?
Well, I am intensely private, as you well know, anyway. So I tend to keep them private, but it makes me think of this time I was in a senior team management team meeting when I worked at United Way. I was fairly new. And the question was, what about you wouldn't we know? Like, tell us something we don't know about you as an icebreaker. And and I had to go first. So I was just like, I'm psychic.
No way.
So yeah, people were sort of like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting."
Next.
But one of the team members came up to me afterwards and he said, "Well, you know what? We need to talk because I'm a witch. So I want to have a conversation with you because I'm really intrigued." Now, he didn't say he was a witch to the whole group, but
Yeah.
it was a terrific conversation, and he and I would talk about, healings. We do energy healings on meetings. I do rose healings on the project. So my team sort of knew, and our teams knew.
Oh
Having
my gosh.
a few positive responses have made me a little less circumspect about being more out there with it. But I would say, as a general rule, I keep it pretty quiet.
Yeah. Well, so I'm just going to ad lib a little bit here.
Okay.
In this question. So, my spirit has always said to me, Nancy, I need you to take the power of that word back, that word psychic, which actually means the soul's breath. But when I hear witch, so it's interesting. When I hear witch, I kind of go, oh, I get a little like, okay, that kind of strikes me. So did it strike you that way? And then once you got to know him, what did you learn about what that word meant?
Yeah, it did. Because of course, being a child of the 60s, I had grown up with Bewitched. So I was surprised he didn't say he was a warlock, but he said witch. So yeah, I had a little bit, but if you say you're a psychic and somebody comes back and says they're a witch, I mean, how much judgment can you really have?
That's right.
Nor should you. But what I found with him, he had Buddhist Tara on his wall. So it's very much about spirituality, but also very nature driven. He did a lot of ceremony around some of the pagan holidays and that sort of thing. But we could come together. As I said, we did healings together on the energy in the organization. We did healings together around meetings where we were presented together and things like that. So even though the language was different, the sensibility around energy work was very much the same.
Yeah. I remember when my daughter was 14 and she said, Mom, I want to be a witch. And I said, well, okay. So I remember going to the bookstore with her and we went through and we looked, and together we went through the chapters, and it was very nature oriented and it was very positive. It was very, always about wanting positive outcomes, uplifting outcomes, very nature connected, sitting by a tree, talking to the tree. And I was like, wow, my own concepts were quite off. about that. So anyway, that's why I wanted to mention that. So it sounds like it was a lot of fun. And I still can't believe that you did that. Did anybody else come up to you after that? Or did they give you a lot of distance after that?
No. The CFO was intrigued. He's very straight-laced. He was like, well, tell me more of that. How does that show up for you? And
oh, nice.
A bit of a conversation. My boss was very open, but he wasn't like intrigued. But I think he thought, let me give her a little space around that. But what I will say, they were all just, no matter how they felt about it, it was as though I had said, I had salad for lunch. They didn't really sort of freak out about it.
Okay, good. Yeah. I think you're awesome to do that, Melanie. That is like, I might as well just throw these doors wide open. I might as well just walk through that door. I think that's wonderful. Yeah. So then it kind of leads to the next question. What is it like to live with your gifts and abilities, and can you turn them on and off at will?
That's interesting. Now it's nice to live with my abilities. In the beginning, it wasn't so great because I'm Clairaudient, so as my predominant ability. And I had really bad ringing in my ears. I had really bad dizziness.
And can you just explain what clairaudient means for those who may not know?
Clear hearing. So I get my intuitive information by hearing, either sounds or, the ringing in my ears that I know now is my guides, my ancestors. But at the time, it was pretty there. I had times when my dizziness was pretty debilitating, where I was just feeling sort of overwhelmed. So yeah, now to live with it, I now know when I really get a high pitch or a lot of activity, I know to sort of pause and connect in and say, okay, what would you like me to know? Because I need to work or I need to sleep. What was the other part of that question? Can I turn it on or off?
Yeah.
I would say I can turn it down. I can't shut it completely off.
And so did you find when you said that you'd get the high-pitched ringing dizziness, and before you really thought it was a physical illness, I'm assuming?
Yes.
And then once you learned that, it's the spirit world that just wants to communicate with me. And so now you'll stop and you'll communicate. So then does the dizziness and the ringing stop once you say, yes? What can I do for you?
Pretty much, yes.
Wow. So, all right, I'm really curious here. So if you're in the middle of a board meeting, like you were talking about, and everybody's talking and you're working on a project, you're being creative, you're coming up with creative ideas, and all of a sudden that dizziness happens, how do you pick up the phone in the middle of that board meeting?
Well, I would say I just sort of pause. I can always pause. And now I have enough of the relationship to also be able to say, I can't, unless there's something like that I really need to address right now, can I connect in with you later? So I just sort of do that telepathically. It's like, okay, I need to focus here, or I need to, but I also know when it's really pretty amped up, it's something I need to pay attention to. For example, when we were working on the trip to Nepal, I was like, that would be nice. And I really got lots of ringing in my ear. I was dizzy and I was like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be paying attention. I'm not only supposed to help, I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
So those types of things, when it's really intense, I can tell that I need to pay attention right then.
Kind of like the cell phone where it sends the message, I'm driving right now. I can't pick up.
Exactly.
I can't pick up my phone while I'm driving. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. So in what ways do you use your abilities that would surprise people?
Let's see. Well, I mentioned it in professional settings, and you know that I have, I come from sort of a corporate background and
Mhm.
nonprofit work. So I think just using it in meetings and on projects, that's one way. One of my favorite ways is I was coming home from class because I was flying back and forth from North Carolina to Tacoma for the classes, your classes. And there was some turbulence, and we had just done, everything is energy. You have your guides, you can connect in. So I just connected in with the air because I was like, huh. And what I heard back was, from the air and the winds, it's like, no one pays attention to us. You don't appreciate the fact that the air keeps you uplifted or that you breathe in air quite naturally. So we would just like some love. And
Wow.
okay, so I sent love out to the air and appreciation for holding up the airplane in a smooth ride, and it settled down. So I do it on airplanes most of the time, certainly use roses and ground it. But, when there's turbulence, I'm like, just checking in with the air. Okay, do you need some love? Okay, we'll send that out.
Must have blown your mind. That is, I mean, when those things happen for me, those bigger things, like I remember once in South Africa, a group of us in a van, and the fog was so thick that someone had to walk in front of the van because we literally couldn't see 2 or 3 feet. And I remember we said, all right, let's see if we can lift the fog. And then we were able to lift the fog at least to the top of the van so we could at least see the road in front of us. You must have wanted to jump up on the plane and say, oh my gosh, I just stopped that turbulence.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had another instance where we were doing an event in the middle of a field, and this huge thunderstorm was rolling in. I could feel it. And of course, my team looked at me and like, what can you do about that? I was like, well, don't we have a contingency plan? Where are we putting all of these people? They were like, well, we could get them to the garage, maybe. And I was like, okay, like, leave me alone. Let me talk. And I did, it stopped. The storm went all around us. It never went to the field. And with that, and I like to say when I tell that story that I don't just do it sort of willy-nilly.
Yeah.
It was very much about protecting people. There were like 70 people in this field. And I was like, okay, I'm talking to the ancestors, I'm talking to the energy, I'm talking to this, just let's keep people safe. And I don't want to make other people unsafe, but if you can just dissipate the energy, and it did. So yeah. So
Yes, yes.
cool ways to use it.
Well, thank you so much for mentioning that piece as well, because a lot of people who are watching this video, they're going to think that's crazy to think that you can even engage or influence the weather. But the other piece is because it's like, if we can influence this, then why do we have these major storms, these major natural disasters? As I say, emotions in the body is the way that the body expresses. And I feel that natural disasters or nature also moves energy to express something. So there's always a reason. Like I remember once a hurricane coming through Florida, and I remember trying to get it was going to be like a category 5. And it was like, all right, how low can you go and still do the job that you need to do? And I heard it still needs to be a category 3 to cleanse the coral reefs off the coast. So it's, that's a whole other subject, but I love it that that's something that you use that would surprise people. Love it. So I have to read my question, sorry.
Okay.
Was there a specific time in your life where you really felt connected to your spiritual energy, really, really tapped in? You've given some really great examples.
Yeah, absolutely. South Africa, the trip to South Africa. From everything from stepping on the land, I could feel the energy of it. And this was before I took the psychic mastery. I had a bones reading that really connected me with my father, and really introduced me to my ancestors. And my father being sort of, as he put it, sort of the lead of the ancestors, that sense of pure love, it made me sort of relax into this idea of ancestors. They sort of felt like, why are these people, what's going on? Why are these energies trying to impact me? But when I got to that sense of love and that purity of love and just feeling that was incredibly powerful. It's when I found out that the ringing in my ears was not tinnitus, it was, my ancestors talking to me. So that was incredibly powerful for me. There were 2 ceremonies. We did a fire ceremony where we released things, and that was when I met my spirit animal. She's still with me today. Her name is Samsara. She's a Black Panther. I was also very connected to the energy of the heart. You talked about being able to see this this emerald in my heart chakra. And I was like, wow, that's super cool. I don't know what that means, but and even the river ceremony where we cleared, for me, male energy. I had a ganglion, which you might be able to still see. I have a little bit, but it was so large that I was going to have surgery when I got back home. And we did clearing of the male energy. And the next morning, you'll remember, you woke up and I was like, this looks like it's almost gone to me. And then when I came downstairs, you said, oh my God, that thing on your hand is almost gone. So I think for me, all of those things were just different manifestations. Because I'll tell you, I'm a show me kind of person. I am not oh yes, I just believe, and it's just, it's been a process for me. But that trip really showed up in so many different ways for me, that the energy, that's when I decided to do more training. And I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes. No. Because South Africa, I think the last trip I took a group to was in 2019. But on average, I was really guided to take people to South Africa on this journey. And I always wondered, so ancestors are those spiritual beings that support you in life. We all have them, and it can be cultivated. But in South Africa, they still venerate their ancestors. They still honor their ancestors. They still have an ancestor kind of altar in their home. They still talk about their loved ones who have passed as if they are still there. They will offer them plates of food. So it's in the land. It's not that we can't connect with them here in the United States or Canada here in the West. It's just that it's just saturated in the land, so it's much more intense. So thank you for bringing them up. Yeah, when that ganglion, when you went into the water in that ceremony, that water ceremony, that cleansing ceremony, and you came out again. I mean, that I'm a nurse, and I've seen some incredible things, but that was really incredible. Yeah, that's amazing. How do you work with your spirit guides? Like you mentioned, your Black Panther. What is her name? What does she go by? Samsara. And your spirit guides and animals. How do you work with them in day-to-day life?
I used to play around. In class, I found out I had like 825 spirit guides, and I was like, what do I do with all of them? So when I was in class, I will say I played with it a lot more, like, what do you do? Who are you? And I do it a little less now because I'm sort of more used to having them around. I do sort of sometimes play with having them really close in, and how does that feel? And then having them sort of move out and away from me. And I found that I really like having them closer in to my energy. And I will say, the spirit animals and spirit guides I tend to use in readings, particularly with first-time clients. When I'm connecting in, I'll say, is there a being or a presence that would like to come forward to help support, just to make you feel comfortable? You haven't worked with me before. And I love that, oftentimes their childhood pet will come forward. I didn't know it at the time, but I was like, there's a fluffy dog whose name is Buddy. And she's like, oh my God, that's my dog. So that's really cool. I love being able to introduce people to their spirit animals. I have one client that I've worked with a long time, and his spirit animal is a polar bear. His name, he's very specific, is Andron. And I said to him, you really want to cultivate, as you always say, cultivate, get your own answers, but cultivate that relationship with your spirit. And for him, connecting with Andron was like, because he was in his early 20s, was that first step. And he was like, Andron says this, and I can connect there. And now, he's a jazz pianist. At his last concert, he had a little stuffed animal who was a polar bear. So he's like, did you see Andron? He was right behind me at my feet. So I just think it's a nice way and sort of a nice introduction for people to sort of connect with the beings that are around us. Samsara is very protective of me. I can feel her energy around me most of the time, to just sort of keeping watch.
Yes. Yeah, I will often say, when I'm teaching, the spirit world will tell me, it's like, look, there's like 10 to 20,000 spirits in the spirit world for every human. Like you're really outnumbered. Your life would be so much better if you involved us a little bit more, because they very much believe in free will. And I know for me, when I started working with spirit animals, because I'm less emotional, I'm not so much of an empath. Have not been sensitive that way. I am more now. But working with spirit animals helped me to do that, because animals are very feeling, and they communicate their needs through feeling impulses. And the spirit realm, spirit guides that are animals are very much the same, communicating through that feeling. So I can really understand what you're saying, that for a first-time client, you would bring in more spirit animals to just help them to feel more comfortable. Yeah.
It also connected me more with nature and that side of this work, and it prompted me to do the shamanic training that I did last year. So yeah, it really sort of broadened my horizons, I would say, as well.
What called you to do more of the shamanic, add that additional piece to the work that you were already doing?
I would go back to South Africa. There were many, the rituals and the opening of sacred space and that connection of nature was part of it. And I really just wanted to have something that was maybe a little more hands-on, and have people really be involved in the work, and, living in the Pacific Northwest now, where it's just nature is so beautiful and so, and the energies of it, you can
palpable. It's
palpable. That's the word that I want. That I really wanted to do more. I grew up in New York. I lived in North Carolina, so I didn't have a lot of that sort of natural connection to the natural world. So I think that was the other piece for me on the shamanic journey. Yeah.
And it's interesting, we all work in different ways. And for me, I've always said I'm not a ceremonial kind of gal. I'm pretty structured, and I'm pretty kind of straightforward. And it's like, okay, let's shift this in the energy field. But there is a richness about ceremony, and just traditional and little things like asking a client to go out and collect stones or things like that. Some tangible things, especially if they're quite kinesthetic and feeling, or like your client. I love that story where he could be playful. He could kind of really relax into as he's kind of learning about his own spiritual connection with the spirit world, to get a little stuffed polar bear. You know, it's something very tangible that someone can work with. Is that what you've noticed?
Yes, very much so. And that same client, I did a shamanic healing on him, and he worked with stones, and he was like, oh, "I'm so intrigued by this." So, I just feel like I have different ways to connect, and I think that's the other piece. There are so many ways and so many different modalities, and
Yes.
all work differently. But for me, having other avenues to connect with clients was
Yeah.
intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I call it the spiritual toolbox that I work with, and having different tools that I can pull from for different people. But I remember my own teacher when I said, "Oh, I'm not a ceremonial kind of gal," and he said, "You will be if the ancestors tell you to be." So, it sounds like you do actively still do readings, and kind of what is your ideal client that you like to work with?
Ooh, oh, that's a good question. I like working with people who are open to the work and just, sort of trust that the process. I will say, I think there are specific avenues now particularly for women of color. And I'm not saying that's exclusive because that's not what my practice looks like. But I would say in the last year or so, the things that have come up for me, being the mother of two adult male Black men, things that are ancestral traumas and things like that. I feel like I'm being led to do a little bit more of that kind of work with women of color, people of color, because there is a sort of connection that we share. And, being a healer, and I'm going to own that word too, being a healer, I'm feeling drawn to work in that way. Not exclusively, but drawn to work in that way. I've done some, as you know, I've done some meditations and things for women veterans who are women of
Yeah.
color. And just doing some of the basic, intuitive mind techniques around the meditation has been transformational for them. So, it's part of the reason I did this training, to be able to be a healing presence.
Oh, I can feel the depth. I can feel the depth of that. I hope you're ready for a few phone calls. And
I
so that does lead me to, do you have a website? And if so, what is the name of it?
It is Zaya Energy Works. Let's see, I have my little card. Let's see, can you see that? Well, at least you can see the Zaya. So
ZAIA Energy Works.
energyworks.com.
Awesome. I will put that on the narrative underneath so that you can all click on it and reach her. So right now, I know that you are living in the Pacific Northwest, and I know that you've been doing your sessions on Zoom, correct? Or on the phone or at a distance?
Mostly Zoom or at a distance, where I do I can't say that. Do the recording and send it. How about that?
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, Melanie, is there anything that you would like to say, any kind of message that you would like to give that didn't get covered before we finish up this interview?
No, I would just say what I love about this work is the ability for everyone to find their own inner light. And as much as it was challenging as a student when you would say, you have your own answers, ask your spirit. That's, to me, that's such an incredibly powerful way to look at things, because it validates each individual and each experience. And I'm not sure you always get that. I think so much of popular culture of psychics is, not true or maligned, but this work is really so authentic that I feel the healing in that. And that's something that I want to share with other people. And I have to give a shout out to my sons who have been very, not only those early days when they were about 2, the story I told you they were 2, 2.5. But now that they both explore it. Cameron is more analytical. Colin is very clairvoyant. So he just sort of goes with it. So, just finding that light and sort of taking that step. This move to Tacoma was a huge step for me. I sold my house, I moved across the country, but that was in alignment with my spiritual gifts too. I was like, okay, if you want me to do this, you have to make it easy. So that's back to that show me kind of thing. Let things unfold. And I had a perfect cross-country move. My house sold in 5 days. My furniture got here a day early. My car got here 2 days early. The apartment was perfect. So just being able to connect people to that trusting and knowingness is an incredible, whether it's through me or you or any of the people that you're going to interview. It's just such a powerful thing that I am excited to get to share.
And we all have it. We just, I call it our intuitive personality. I'm always saying, okay, you've got these tools. Now add your intuitive personality. And we all have a different personality. And that's what I love so much about sharing these conversations, not only with you, with others, but then extending this sharing to the greater community out there, because we all are intuitive. So, my dream is that we can all realize that one day and just be okay with it. Just be cool with it. So, all right, Melanie, thank you so much. I know that we could talk all day long, but wow, what a rich conversation. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to get to chat with you.